All right, welcome back to another in-studio Wright Stew podcast. I'm Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, still in radio studio.
Radio studio, speaker studio.
Speaker studio, sorry.
So we're back, and today we wanted to do something a little different. Brian and I have been talking about this, and this is something Brian's really excited about. I'm excited about as well. We're going to call this one Bowl of Wright Stew, because we're going to be talking about college bowl games, the origins, the history, some meaningful games, some games throughout time, some individual players, lots of things. And we're taking a little different approach to this one.
Yeah.
So Brian and I both did our individual research, haven't shared a lot of it with each other. So we're going to kind of go back and forth and share some facts, dive into some stories of us growing up watching bowl games, and then maybe some personal anecdotes of us going to bowl games and that sort of thing. So, Brian, what do you got for us?
So it's just interesting whenever you dig back. Like, for so long, we have been tied to the BCS through our errors, right? To where, for the longest time, it was kind of voted upon by the AP, and this is our first, second place team, and how to, you had split champions at times, and it was just, I was just curious. I mean, the playoff to me has been such a natural progression.
Yeah.
And I'd always wondered, like, why did it take us so long to get to this point? And go ahead, Paul.
Well, that's a great. Why did it take so long? And some of it is, well, money, right? How are you making money doing these sort of things, right? That ties
it
into
is.
it.
And I was originally caught up with, maybe it was popularity, right? Like, baseball is known as, America's pastime, right? I don't think I realized, when I was looking at some different things, and I don't think I realized, like, some of the numbers as far as Nielsen ratings and stuff that they were getting back in the day. Clearly, when you think about, we've all heard, who's our boy who did the Rose Bowl announcing for so long?
Keith Jackson.
Yeah, and his voice.
The granddaddy of them all. Alabama.
Yeah, so you hear that, and you're like, why is he calling this thing the granddaddy of them all? Because it was the first bowl game.
Yeah, that was a terrible Keith Jackson.
Also. You want another one? You want to do it again?
I don't want another shot. That was bad though.
But
yeah, the granddaddy of them all. We hear it all the time, and you're right. It was the original bowl game. Originally, the East-West tournament, East-West football game.
Yeah.
And then tied to the Tournament of Roses there.
I always wondered, like, why do we have a parade around football with roses? Seems like a big waste. California seems like they would be more conserving. That don't seem like a California type thing.
Well, California is pretty bold, and they like to do.
That's one word for it.
Well, there you go. Yeah. We don't have any listeners in California right now.
No. We're not really worried about it. But it's just odd that, you think about, let's just think about parades in general.
Yeah.
You a fan of parades?
I've participated in
I've participated in them, but
like, not like as a kid, like a small. But we were in the couple times in the Belhaven 4th of July parade. I once painted myself head to toe in green as the Incredible Hulk. And my whole family was superheroes, and I walked around as the Hulk.
Shirt.
It was like a kid's medium.
Okay.
And it was torn.
Okay.
And I didn't talk. I growled at people. And I had a pool noodle, and I was like, like.
So you were completely bought in, right?
One of the biggest looking back, one of the biggest compliments was as I was walking through. Sweat. It's 4th of July in Eastern North Carolina. Super hot. I'm sweating.
Right.
But I heard one like, "That's a skinny Hulk." I wish somebody would call me
He's a skinny fat guy.
I wish somebody would call me a skinny Hulk now. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. So
yeah, I do enjoy, and I like going to the Raleigh downtown
Christmas
parade.
Man, just different, right? I always like parades, and if you won a game, or obviously I've got daughters, and one of them dances, so we've done parades, and it's just like, I don't know. We do it like we'll go up to the mountains, and they'll have parades for the 4th of July, and small town parades, and I don't really understand. I just don't understand.
You get people whipping candy,
right? It's like,
It's a celebration.
What are we? I mean, we're going to drive vehicles down the road. We're going to stare at people that aren't famous for anything, and it's like, so anyway, that's on me.
It's a thing to do. It's a thing to do.
Yeah,
it passes time.
Yeah, again, obviously you're right. There's parades everywhere.
It's
People
tradition.
love them. But the Roses parade, like I always wondered, right? That was always on before the bowl game. And
have you ever? So I've never actually watched.
I have
the Tournament of Roses parade. I've never watched that one. I don't care about that 100%.
I have.
Is that your one that you watch every year?
I think that's I don't watch any parades on purpose. I'm not watching no parades.
It's just on while you're making breakfast.
It's on. You know the football game's getting ready to come on after that.
That's it.
Yeah. So you're not. I mean, I am amazed what they can do with flowers. Right. I mean, they make all kinds of crazy creations out of flowers. That doesn't seem like that's easy. It doesn't seem like clearly there's talent around that. Again, but I have seen it, and I'm always amazed. And then obviously you've heard Keith Jackson always say the granddaddy of them all, and so it's just interesting. And then essentially, so it didn't immediately start. They had that one bowl game, and then I think it was like 1916 before they had another one. There were several years between the first one and the next one before they actually had the second one.
Yeah. So by 1940 there were 5 other major bowls. So the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl established in 35, the Cotton Bowl in 37, the Orange Bowl in 35, and the Sun Bowl in 35. So
which is kind of
the big 5. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. The Sun Bowl,
I
never heard of
that one.
Yeah, I don't even know. That didn't hit my radar. It's kind of interesting that we tied everything to agriculture, right? I mean, it was. I don't know.
Sugar, cotton, orange, and sun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually the Fiesta, I guess, came out, right? And that was one that was part of the championship series for a while. And again, it is money driven. I think that is the thing, and that's really what kept the bowl games. Whenever you look into great bowl games, there's a couple that come to mind. But one, I've seen this movie. You ever seen the movie called? I think it's called All American.
I have not.
So this guy named Joe Steinmark.
Okay.
He was playing in the game against. This is the game. The winner of this team, it's the old Southwest Conference. The winner of this team would go and play in the Cotton Bowl. So Nixon shows up to this game.
Richard Nixon,
1969, shows up to this game. December, I think 6th, 7th, somewhere in that range. Shows up to the game, and he establishes, "Hey, this is going to be the champion. This is the championship game." It's
Richard Nixon does?
Yes.
The president.
The president of the United States.
Okay.
Talking about Nielsen ratings, this game got a 52 in 1969. Got a 52 rating. And so you got number 1 Texas versus number 2 Arkansas.
Yeah.
Played at Arkansas. And on that team, they had a kid named Joe Steinmark.
Okay.
And so kind of a small kid from Colorado, undersized, kind of a worker, a hustler, and kind of had become the heartbeat of the team. One of his buddies was actually recruited to Texas and really didn't have any other D1 opportunities, but his buddy was supposed to be a stud quarterback, eventually becomes a tackle. Again, we're 1969.
Okay.
Anyway, he essentially becomes the heart of the team. But this Joe Steinmark kid plays with bone cancer in his knee.
Holy cow.
Literally, his leg is amputated like 2 or 3 days later after this.
Good grief.
Played through the game, made plays within the game, and was an absolute stud. It's a story. If I can recommend a movie, it felt like it was pretty well done. Obviously,
is that a newer movie?
It's not that new, dude. I think it's in the last 10 years, right? Okay. We're of the age where it's
color.
hard. Yeah. It's not in black and white,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
Right. They're not using puppet animals or anything to try to display it. It was a movie about Joe Steinmark, but it's called All American. But dude, it's just basically followed his story. How he fought the guy on the field. He always was a good attitude guy. Busted his butt, playing through immense pain. But literally, he died a little bit less than a year later. So they went on and won the Cotton Bowl.
Okay.
Texas did.
Yeah, so that I pulled a list of kind of greatest bowl games of all time. And the Texas-Arkansas game was definitely listed on there, the Cotton Bowl.
It was called the Game of the Century, or known as the Game of the Century. But yeah, it's just interesting whenever you think about.
Well, so the one game that really stands out to me from so I grew up watching bowl games, loved them, especially the New Year's Day bowls had a lot of significance growing up. Those were the big ones that everybody wanted
And I
to
think
see.
it was you growing up. I'm not going to interrupt you too long, but I think it's you growing up here. Like me growing up kind of rural North Carolina, we saw like a game or two, but it wasn't. I think it was more of a big deal when these, when you're closer to NC State and closer to college sports. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I was a big college fan, so I followed the ratings on it. But the one that really stands out was more. I was an adult, right? It was 2006, so the 2005 season. It was the Texas USC.
Right.
Um,
I think even when you look up lists, that's considered.
That's
Hey, do you have a scrapbook for that one?
I don't have a scrapbook for any of the college ball games. I did. I'll give you another nerdy thing I did. So this was college basketball. We'll divert just a touch, but
yeah.
This was probably the 92 season.
Yeah.
I kept two separate notebooks. One was NBA and one was NCAA. Every week when the AP released their poll, I would release like Paul's poll for college basketball. So I had my own rankings and everything.
Were you usually kind of lock and step?
Well, I pretty much read the AP poll. I watched a ton of ACC games. I probably had them rated a little higher. But that was the year Duke won the national title. I think I had them number one end to end, which I think was what the AP did as well.
That's incredible.
So back to 2006, the Rose Bowl, the Texas versus USC. I became a pretty big USC fan. They were just Lindell White and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart. And famously now Reggie Bush had his Heisman taken away that year, vacated.
Yeah.
That was the year of the Bush push in the Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
So they came in a favorite against Texas. Had some really good players, but it was known as Vince Young's team. And Vince Young in that game was amazing, just unstoppable. And then had that run, the famous Sports Illustrated picture where he's crossing the goal line, and just an amazing game to watch. And that's one that always stood out to me.
And I was obviously older then, and I was very much a fan and was watching all the games then. What's interesting is there'd always been, I guess, stars of college football, but it feels like those bowl games, unlike now, could almost establish yourself as a legitimate star. And those guys had already established themselves. But Vince Young put himself on a different level through that game.
Yeah, and became top pick.
Top pick. And what it's still a solid career. Probably disappointing in his mind.
Yeah, I think probably disappointing to people because they had much bigger expectations, and he had some trouble off the field as well that led to some of those issues.
That's right.
But that was obviously a huge game. So the one thing too you mentioned, why did it take us to get here? The tournament, right?
Yeah.
So there was a couple of iterations. So the Rose Bowl historically was tied to the Pac-10 and the Big Ten.
Yep.
So you would have Michigan or Ohio State or Wisconsin, whoever from the Big Ten playing USC or UCLA or Oregon, whoever it might be. So you had those ties, and in the mid '90s, the Bowl Alliance was formed in 1995.
Okay,
where they
remember conversations about that. Yeah.
Where they took the other major bowls.
So prior to that, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Prior to that, though, it was kind of an arbitrary.
It was very much a
subjective.
You could have a split. You could have
split. Somebody that decided one could play three. The bowls could kind of decide who was going to play who, or
Well, you had like you said, you had your ties.
Mm-hmm.
And then so those conferences were tied to playing those games, and you kind of had to pull for somebody to lose to keep an undefeated or make that judgment call. So there were some that were, hey, maybe if you go back, you put it in a 4-team tournament, it's a whole different ball of wax. So,
oh yeah, for sure. And going back to that 1969 game with the Cotton Bowl and whatever, Bo Schembechler had just gotten to Michigan or been at Michigan, and the only reason that game had the significance that it did, or one of the reasons, was they beat Ohio State. In 1969.
So Ohio State was knocked off.
And then that allowed for Texas and Arkansas, which I assume Arkansas. But it became an incredible matchup. But anyway, going back to
so 95, 96, 97 was the Bowl Alliance.
Okay,
which was the predecessor to the BCS that we started to know.
And how stupid was that? How many times were there like, dude? And we should have looked this up, but how many times were there like a team is so close? There'd be, again, two teams. You'd have two teams that are 11-1, and one would be the number 2 team, one would be the number 3 team. And for such a long time, we only had 2 teams. It just seems, it seems so obvious now. It seemed obvious then, to be honest with you, but it just took that Bowl Alliance again. When I hear Alliance, I feel like there's money being handed through back doors somewhere. That's probably determining.
So the BCS, the goal was to take empirical information and data and use that to not use personal opinion to create to find the top two teams in the country. And so it was always a formula. I remember watching Sports Center and different things back in the day, and they were trying to figure out the calculations and the algorithms and all this, and they would produce a report every Monday or Tuesday or whatever it was, and you would wait and be like, yeah, Florida State has whatever, I can't remember the exact number. It was like 59.12 points. Miami has 59.6 or 01, whatever. And then but Nebraska's right on their heels and that sort of thing. So
it's just interesting that I don't think you can take. I mean, even you see it with AI being it has its biases and gives you bad information. I've used AI for various things, and one of the things I was trying to look up stories related around bowl games, and they come up with the Rudy story from Notre Dame. That was one of the ones that it spit out.
Wasn't even in a bowl.
He wasn't even in a bowl. I mean, it's like,
last game of a meaningless regular season game.
And it's like, dude. And so
watch out for AI, folks. Not all
it's not right. They haven't worked out the kinks and the biases.
Yeah.
But anytime you use a system like that, I know it was supposed to be, hey, these kind of objective set of perimeters that got you in or didn't get you in. But I do recall, and I should know this, but there were definitely times where it felt like there could be another team.
And part of the reason that went away, or was partly was because the Rose Bowl still had the ties to the Big Ten and Pac-10. So those schools could not participate in. Okay, famously in 1997, it was 97, undefeated Michigan was ranked first in both major polls.
Yes,
as the Big Ten champ, but they had to play number 8 Washington State, who was the Pac-10 champ at the time. While the number 2 team was Nebraska, and they played number 3 Tennessee with Peyton Manning. But Peyton Manning was hurt, so Michigan won their game and Nebraska won their game. So that was a split title.
Yeah,
because they both were undefeated, and one poll went to Michigan and one poll
feels very soccer-esque, right?
Yeah.
It feels very just.
Well, you don't
really know.
Well, you don't decide it on the field. You don't decide on the field.
And I know there's all these guys this weekend are talking about, there should have been another SEC team in and all this stuff, and that may be true or may not be true, but until you play the game, you don't know how you're going to match up. No. You don't know. I'm convinced, Arizona State's going to have a good showing. I feel like Boise State's going to have a good showing. In one game, it's not a 7-game series.
Yeah.
One game, anything can happen. And on the flip side, you can have one bad game. You see it all the time in the NFL, or 2 or 3 bad games, and still figure out a way to win the championship.
A couple guys slipping, a couple picks, a couple errant throws.
Yeah, turnovers that you normally don't have. It changes everything.
Bad weather might affect something. I think they're all nice warm weather cities, but you just never know. 1 play, 2 plays, and affect.
Well, I'm just saying, regular season, right? In the regular season, that definitely can happen. And now, at least, there's a, if you win your conference championship, you're automatically in if you're one of the Big Four.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame, I would imagine at this point, if they don't have more than 2 losses in a year, they're going to be in habitually.
Every year,
which is kind of, you lose to Northern Illinois, right? That eliminates most teams.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, 100%.
And
if that's Army or Navy, who had really good seasons going in, that they're done. Right?
And Army's only loss, minus Navy now, but Army's only loss before this past weekend was Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting, though, how we, even in sports that should be decided on the field, it's taken us this long. I love the 12 games.
So what I'm excited about it as well. I think I'm wearing my Clemson sweatshirt tonight. Yeah, that's who I'll be pulling for. They've got a big one against Texas, so we'll see how it goes. The other thing too with these bowl games this year, especially, is and throughout time, coaches have more time to game plan.
Oh, that's a great point.
They have more time with their coaches, throwing some new wrinkles. Hey, all your tape's out there. Let's mix it up. Let's change some things. Maybe our quarterback runs a little more now than usual. That sort of thing.
I think that's a great point, and I think it kind of is defining about kind of who's the better coach. I think in these situations, maybe the playoffs takes this away a little bit because I don't think obviously you got 2 weeks now between the last game and the first round of the playoffs, but it kind of after this, I think everything gets a little bit tighter schedule wise. They're not taking 2 weeks every time, right? They win one, then it's a week in between. And so when you used to have like a month, you give a really good coach that's committed to cutting up all the film and scouting themselves, and it really the better coach has such the football and obviously basketball too, but football, the coaching has such a huge impact on results, right? And getting guys in the right position, you're motivating guys every day, but you're also, you're picking up little cues. Hey, when this guy is throwing a pass, his right foot's back a little bit further or whatever the case may be. And it's just interesting that now some of that's going to be taken away. And the other thing that we hadn't even touched on yet that kind of just naturally leads there is the portal that opened up in the middle.
Rhett Lashley, the SMU coach, was all over it. I think today or yesterday, but talking about, hey, some of these first round matches. So he was, I think, alluding to the Penn State quarterback.
The backup quarterback,
Bo Prabula.
It's something like that. Yeah, it's Bo. We'll just call him Bo.
It's
got an easy first name.
Beau, the very southern way to spell it.
Which I like.
So Bo is...
I don't know, I feel like southern would be just B-O. Yeah, I feel like B-E-A-U was... It's like
fancy,
maybe...
That's
rich southern if you're spelling it that way. That's not...
He's got plantation roots, that's all.
Yeah.
But so he's the backup quarterback for Penn State, but the portal is now.
Yeah, especially for a quarterback.
Yeah, and so he's the backup, and he's like, hey, I want to play. I've got a chance to play other places.
Yeah.
But he could legitimately, like a backup quarterback now is really, really important to a team.
Yeah, and I think it was Franklin was talking about it, and he's like, he wants to be here, right? He wants to be a part of this. And it's just, but he understands that the starter is his age or younger. The reality is, hey, we love you. He grew up a Penn State fan. Yeah. But I understand. It really puts everybody in a weird place because there's no necessarily right answers. Because if you do it much later, Paul, maybe you could do it at the first round, but if you do it much later, guys aren't going to have time to even move into. I mean, you got school starting, I would imagine, second week of January, and so you.
But why does the portal have to happen now? I mean, I know
they got to get into school.
Well, I know for the second semester, but you're going
right.
I guess that's fair.
I mean, maybe
I forget about the school aspect. Like, oh, you've got to go to class. Oh,
yeah, and that's debatable, and maybe there could be some exceptions on that a little bit. But maybe we just move the second semester start back to like the second week of January, and then we open
just
this
for
up.
Football players.
I mean, dumber things have happened. I mean, here's the deal. People go to school because of football success and failure. Why not just move back the whole semester a couple of weeks to give this window to make more sense for what the playoff is now? Because it makes no sense now. Matter of fact, Marshall, speaking of bowl games that don't necessarily matter, but Marshall had to pull out of their bowl game because they didn't have enough players because their coach left and took 25 of their players with them, and they don't even have enough players to participate in their bowl. And so you've got situations where a bunch of kids, say there's another 75, 80 kids that are there currently. Yeah.
No coach, half a team.
Had a great season. I think they won 9 or 10 games. They had a really good season. Marshall did.
The thundering herd is just like the whimpering herd.
Well, they probably are the whimpering herd. Obviously, famously, they're flying back from ECU and had the plane go down.
I haven't seen that movie either.
We Are Marshall. Highly recommend that one. You got 2 movies you need to watch.
I did a rewatch at Home Alone last night,
bro. So did it grow on you at all, or you'd like it less now?
A little more towards liking it. Still don't like it. Still really dislike the McAllister family
as a whole. You're just not a fan.
I actually took a lot of notes on it because I was trying to give it a fair chance.
Okay.
Just some unredeemable family members.
Well, I think you mentioned your starter guys. What?
Oh, the starting lineups.
The starting lineups were they were getting shot at or something.
And Kevin was having target practice, so maybe subconsciously.
I'm sure instantly you were like, "That is against God's law."
He had a Neil Anderson one, the running back from like late '80s, early '90s. I have that one.
He shot it.
He shot it into the
Was he shooting it with
laundry.
BBs? I can't even remember
because
this.
his brother had the BB gun, and
Okay.
yeah,
Shooting a BB gun inside too.
well, he's an 8-year-old alone for the first time, and that's what you do.
Well,
right?
was he preparing to protect his house at that point?
At that point, he was not. He was just, hey, I'm on my own. I'm an 8-year-old. I'm going to do whatever I want in the house.
I was trying to justify the behavior, because if you're protecting your house, would you sacrifice your starting lineups to protect your?
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, but then he eventually used the gun to shoot the Joe Pesci's character in the Ding Ding, and then the other guy in the forehead.
Yeah, hit him with an iron.
Yeah, I don't want to derail this conversation with Home Alone. I'll hit it.
Well, no, that's awesome.
So bring it back. So here's something to derail a little bit.
Okay.
So we talked about the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Cotton, like these classic names. Once people figured out they could start giving the naming rights to these bowl games,
I was going to go down this road. I did not get down it.
Started getting real goofy with some names, and it was sponsored. So do you remember any off the top of your head that stand out as like particularly like?
Well, dude, I just saw
goofy?
One. I mean,
Give
the
it to
Cricket
us.
Bowl.
The Cricket. Yeah.
I mean, again, I guess there's Cricket Wireless now, the phone company, but I'm trying to think.
I've got a list of a few.
All right, hit them. You got the list.
So here, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa.
Who knows what that represents?
I don't know.
It's not Bad Boy Records. That would be
they're in trouble. Let's see what else we got here. The Battle Frog Fiesta Bowl. I don't know what that is. The Beef O'Brady's Bowl. I like that one.
I like that. That's an underrated restaurant.
You a Beef O'Brady's fan?
I mean,
I don't think I've ever been.
I think I have been, and
Okay.
it feels very much, kind of sit down, kind of something less than like a nice place, but something better than fast food.
There was a big run of late 90s, early 2000s bowl games with .com names.
Oh, that makes sense.
The Insight.com Bowl, the HomePoint.com, MicronPC.com.
I do. For some reason, I remember that one, and there's a ton of people who lost money during that .com.
I was
era.
one of them.
Yeah,
I was one of them.
You had made money, obviously, with your draft, and probably had some.
I made. Then they took it all. The stock market took it all from me. So there's a handful. There's one back in the 40s and 50s. The salad bowl,
and they're giving like millions of dollars to these schools to go. And I know it disperses out, and I know some of that's probably changed, and then now it goes to conferences. But at one time, it went to individual schools, so it was a huge ordeal to go to these bowls.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so if you got to these bowls, it was almost the rich getting richer, because if you were a Michigan or if you were a Texas or a Florida State or Florida, and you went to one of these bowls and just being invited to the bowl, you got millions of dollars, which, doesn't seem like, $1 or $2, $3 million doesn't seem like a lot today when you're talking about sports. But back in that day, it was a big difference. That's paying a couple more coaches. That's probably paying a couple more players under the table, maybe donating to the church that you need to get that player, however that works.
Steeple on there.
Yeah.
And that's another that's another fun thing too with the bowl games. I've seen a lot of videos and photos of the student athletes going to the games. And they get the and above board, right? This is legal.
Yeah,
the bowls give them
gear.
Yeah, headphones and
shoes.
Back in the day, Walkmans and shoes and just bags,
Beats,
and
wireless,
all kinds of shirts and sweatshirts and hoodies and collared shirts and sweatsuits, all the kind of stuff. So, I can imagine as a player, it's a lot of fun to walk into your hotel room and have
like a gift. It's like Christmas,
a big giant gift bag.
You get to do a couple things you love, especially if you're a junior or senior, right? I can kind of imagine this. You walk into your room, you're getting your gear from your bowl game. It's going to be one of your last games of your collegiate career. You may or may not get to play at the next level. And, you get to go do it. And what's interesting now is how many kids sit out of bowl games, right? If it's not the playoffs, like if you're a player, Paul, and you're coming up and you're the guy, you're quarterback for Clemson, whoever, and you're playing in the Mayonnaise Bowl, and you're a junior, senior.
I was playing in a Mayonnaise Bowl this morning.
What does that mean?
I was making deviled eggs.
Oh, I didn't know where you went with that.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Sorry. So, and you're playing in the Mayonnaise Bowl, and you're not going to you're not going to.
It's not a national.
It's not a national
championship.
championship. Are you playing in it? I mean,
And I have a chance.
and you're a draft guy, right? You're draft.
Yeah.
They're saying, hey, second, third round, depending on how your combine, whatever happens. Are you playing in it?
Yeah, honestly, probably not.
You're not.
Probably not in 2024, 2025. I mean, there's too much money, man.
Yeah.
There's too much money.
I think that's an honest answer.
Yeah.
And I think I would, dude. I think I would. Here's probably be the truth. I'd probably encourage my kid not to.
Yeah.
But I think I would. I would have to. I think because I think about my teammates, and I know you didn't go to college, but you had some different relationships. In college, it felt like it's very much a high school. So you played obviously high school and felt that camaraderie. And I know minor league ball, it's different because you're kind of playing for each other. I mean, you're not playing for each other, you're playing for yourself. But dude, for college, dude, if we could go back and play one more game, and it didn't matter
as a 46-year-old,
not even as a 47-year-old, but as a 22-year-old, and the season's over, dude, you're playing that game. And I know there's a lot higher risk with football than it is playing baseball, but it's a weird, like as a competitor, it's kind of a weird mindset, right? Because on one side, it's very logical not to. And it's Christian McCaffrey famously didn't. Yeah. There's been a lot
of people didn't. The whole Florida State team didn't last year. That's why they got smoked in the bowl game.
Yeah, and honestly, that kind of changed the whole culture of that team.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even though they had a bunch of draft guys, and it kind of shows like one game, it doesn't matter, but it kind of does. Yeah. So it's interesting though. I think it's a.
So how as a bowl game, somebody putting on a bowl game, or as the NCAA, you want to see the best players play. You want to see them play. Are there ways you can encourage players to play in those bowl games? Is it so? Maybe we talked about this. I think we talked about it a couple of days ago. There is a lot of money being thrown around, right?
Yeah, why are we not paying these kids to go play in them?
Well, that's the thing, right?
I mean, that's the obvious thing because there's direct money at this point that
if you win the game, you get
an extra $10,000. Think about $10,000 at 20 years old.
Or 20. I was going to say 25,000.
And it may not be that much to those guys. So maybe you do need to go $25,000. But if you had a money incentive to get the whatever player from NC State, NC State and ECU are going to go play in some bowl that a handful of people care about, and I'll watch it. And the real fans will go and support the team. But if they were, from a player standpoint, if they're going to give the winners 25 and the losers get 5,000, I think you're getting a little bit different effort, which is probably not a great sign of the times because used to you would play for free, right? Or used to, but I do think that probably.
But here's the thing: the players have seen behind the curtain.
That's true. Yeah,
they've seen the great and powerful eyes.
That's a great point.
And they've seen what kind of money is legitimately out there.
Yeah,
and there's still enough for everybody.
I agree.
To go around and then some, right? So they've peeled that Band-Aid off. They know what it's like. So they realize, hey, we could, you know what? Let's just release another edition of the college football playoff game or the CFP version of the PlayStation game. Dude, there's all the money you need right there.
Well, and I know everybody got paid, and there's a handful of kids that held out on that, and the game was $75 too. And
well,
so
they got a free copy and $800. I think is what it was.
But it's a lot of players, but still enough to go around to where EA, I'm sure, is still making money.
Okay, sure.
But on the flip side of that, if
we went, so my son wanted the game. I was in line. We pre-ordered. I was in line at the GameStop picking it up for him. There were people legit people our age waiting in line because they wanted that game. And they were repping their gear into the store. There was probably 15 men, just grown men, picking up their copies.
There's definitely some nostalgia. I can still remember 1994 college football and some of the moves you could do that were almost like cheat moves. But it was so
easy way to bring money. Yeah.
But no, even back to these bowl games. I mean, honestly, it would make a ton of sense because all these even first, second round bowl games, who's getting that money? Right? Who's getting the money from those gates and from those operations? Is it going to the home team? Is it going to a conference? I don't know. But you could argue that at least you get rewarded. Would that change like somebody?
I think it definitely changes the way guys approach bowl games.
Yeah, I think so too. And rightfully so, dude. I mean, that's like you said, the curtain's been pulled back at this point. Let's let's take care of them and
But
allow
you're
them.
talking even if you say 25,000,
I know that
and
don't
you
mean
say, "Hey, Brian, you're going to be a first to third round pick."
that's true.
That's
Yeah,
literally millions of dollars.
that's true. So does that even move though? Does that
Does
change anything?
I think very very small amounts of change. I think.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that came to mind for me.
Is there anything else that come to mind? I mean,
Other than I don't think coaches can't hold anything over anybody's head because hey, you're not going to play next year. It's like, well, I'm getting drafted anyway, so that doesn't matter,
no.
right? You're
Or I'm leaving or
or
whatever.
I'll transfer.
Yeah.
Forget this, right?
I
There'll be
feel
a
like
dozen
even if
people
you're
lining up.
transferring like the Penn State kid, he should be able to transfer and still, like, if everything's a good standing, he should still be able to stay at Penn State through the bowl situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the logical thing that we've kind of done full circle. Like, now, if you're leaving because, Paul Stewart's my coach and I hate Coach Stewart and he hates me and it's mutual, that's probably a different story. But if you're leaving on good terms, which it seems like,
Yeah, it seems like he is.
there's a lot of guys that are doing that too. I hear the Arizona coach speak on it several times too, and he's obviously wanting more money to keep some guys and understanding guys that are wanting to leave because of different opportunities. And the money that it's required to keep guys is significant. But if guys want to stay there, maybe you're third in the depth chart and you see, hey, I'm never going to be as good as Paul and I'm never going to be as good as Josh or whoever, and I'm three on the depth chart. You probably want to have that guy in the bowl game, but you understand him wanting to leave next year and maybe have an opportunity to go somewhere else so he can be number two or have a chance to start.
Have a chance to play, yeah. And ultimately, that's what all the young men want to do. They want to play, and you don't have to stick it out and sit behind people anymore. You make your own.
I do think there's something. I do think we're developing, and this is a conversation for a different time, but a kind of a mentality, a very selfish mentality.
Well, it starts where we're at right now with travel baseball and AAU basketball and whatever it is, right? And I think college or football is the one sport where where high school football matters, right?
It does.
Outside of, and you're still going to camps, you're doing 7-on-7 camps and things like that, but so those certainly matter. But the high school football season, that's where you get your tape. That's where it is.
Yeah, even if you perform in the 707, your tape's got to kind of match up to that.
Yeah, but whereas travel baseball, we see this even at our young age. We've been coaching the boys and AU basketball. Kids are bouncing, playing for 2 and 3 teams at a time. But football, it seems like that in college is the first time they can legitimately. I'm not super happy. Let me go try this, right? So there's a little bit of that.
I think there is something lost though with that grind. With that like, dude, I'm fifth. Dude, or like Tom Brady famously was seventh coming in.
Yeah.
Right? And there's something lost to the mental toughness required to just like, I'm gonna get a 0.1% better today. I'm gonna get 0.1% better today. And there's again, I don't necessarily. I heard some of the guys talking on some of the radio stations and maybe some of the podcasts talking about development. Hey, you're losing development because you're just going to a place that wants you, and they're going to put you in a place. But I don't necessarily care so much. I do think there is something lost to the mental toughness required, right? But on the flip side, I completely understand it too. You got 4 years. You got 4 years, and maybe five if you get redshirted, and most of these guys aren't going to go play in the NFL. So if you can go somewhere and get $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, or in some cases get $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, I completely understand it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is I don't know what the average length of a football coach is at a school.
Okay.
Probably not 5 years. So
I feel like college may be a bit different.
Maybe a little longer, but I mean, I'm sure
not at the SEC. I bet it is 5 or less.
There's probably a lot of transition.
Like ACC,
so you may get promised by one coach. I mean, it happened to me, and we talked about it in our draft stories. Like before I even got in there, my coach changed.
Right.
Coach David's been there for 26 years now, right? 27, whatever it is.
But he's the exception to the rule. That's why he's acknowledged
and so you see things bouncing around and people going up and sideways and whatever it is, right? But so some of that is you may hear from your coach like, hey, you just mentioned it. The Marshall coach took all the players with him.
Yeah, took them with.
Coach Prime famously said, "I'm coming," and when he did.
He brought his guys, and honestly, we hadn't even brought up was it Stegnetti from Indiana?
Yeah,
he brought 13 JMU players.
Yeah.
right? And obviously JM still was good enough to beat UNC and put 70 on them, but
I think that's like the 17th time you've brought that up.
hey, we're going to make sure that it's known. Obviously, Belichick's going to change that. I mean, I was clearly wrong about him taking that job. The appeal there, he's a lacrosse guy. Obviously, famously, UNC is a great college lacrosse program. But, you know, he took 13.
How many points did JMU hang on Carolina?
We got 70, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, it's unbelievable. They had 50 or something or 40. I mean, it's something crazy at halftime.
Go Dukes. Go Dukes.
All right. We got anything else to add to this?
So, all-time bowl records.
Oh, that's good.
We'll do a quick quiz.
Yeah, I need it because you know I didn't look this up.
I know you love quizzes. Bowl games played. Give me, let's say top three. Who do you think the top three programs all time in bowl games played?
You got Texas?
Texas is number 3 on the list with 59.
Michigan? They make it?
No, not on the list. Not on the top 3. They have 52.
Alabama?
Alabama's number 1. 76 bowl games played.
Ohio State?
No.
Just outside of it?
Just outside of. Number 2 is Georgia.
Oh, that makes sense.
With 62.
Makes sense. I think about Georgia being more of a modern day success.
Yeah.
But clearly I'm wrong on that.
Good.
Yeah.
So Alabama also the most wins. They play the most games, have the most wins, 45 wins. Second most wins is Georgia at 38, and then USC at 35. Losses. You want to give a shot at the two schools are tied with the most losses at 29. You want to name those two schools?
Notre Dame.
Nope.
Is it a bad school? Is it a
good
like
schools,
big schools?
Great schools. Yeah, big schools. You know. It's actually pretty funny. It's Michigan and Ohio State.
Probably in games they shouldn't have been in at times.
Both have the most losses, 29.
Well, you got to be there a bunch of times.
Yeah, and they both.
And famously, right, there didn't used to be all these bowls back in the day. It was a reward.
Yeah, and so Michigan and Ohio State are probably for the first, those first 30, 40 years.
Oh, for sure.
They're going to the Rose Bowl. It's one of those two schools going to the Rose Bowl.
100%. And when I was looking up that Joe Steinmark story and learning more about that, 1969 was the century season of college football. So 1869. And those schools can trace their history back to right at the beginning of when college football was being played as well. Yeah. Obviously, Army and Navy and some of the military institutions were playing really early on and had a great deal of success as well. But it's clearly fallen off. So, Paul, you obviously got memories and tell great stories, but any bowl game memories that come to mind? Have you been to a bowl game that sticks out?
So I've been to one bowl game. It was the 2003 Gator Bowl.
Okay, famously.
So 2002 season. My wife graduated from State. Family, a lot of State graduates. So. State had a great year. Got up to number 9. I would say number 9 in the poll that year.
Would have been in the playoffs now.
Well, then they lost like their last 3 of the last 4 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So they got up to. They were like 8, 9. And then they.
Was Rivers still there? Rivers was
Philip Rivers was there.
Okay.
Jericho Cotry was there, but a lot of they played Notre Dame in that game. Yeah. Notre Dame with Ty Willingham as the head coach. And State played a really great ended up winning 28-6. Notre Dame's 2 field goals, but Philip Rivers had a great game.
Nobody was sitting out of bowl games then.
No, not at all. And I think that was it was really, especially playing Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean they're a historical program, even though I think they get more credit and maybe more.
And they probably deserve.
Yeah, than they deserve. But still, what a historical program.
Just a cool thing. And then so it was in Jacksonville, so not
a great destination.
But it was warmer.
It's Florida.
Yeah, it was Florida, and but it was a really fun time.
Did you do anything fun when you were down there? Did you take any notes or?
No. I mean, we hung out kind of around the water. We went to Ruth's Chris.
I love that you can remember
for dinner that night.
What'd you get to eat? Did you get the steak? How do you like your steak cooked?
Medium. I'm a medium guy.
Okay. Do you have a particular cut of meat that you like? A particular cut of meat? Do you like the ribeye or do you like the filet?
I'm a filet or sirloin guy.
Okay, I'm a ribeye guy.
I don't like the fat in the ribeye.
I like the fat. I feel like it gives the flavor. Yeah. I've trained my son on it as well. And you eat it all. You got to eat the fat as well. That's really
not me.
You don't get looking like this eating lean meat. So anyway,
so I was in, I guess the fall league in 2001.
Yeah.
And so as a minor league player, so you got a lot of time. So you spend a lot of time at malls just
killing time.
just kind of walking
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And the Arizona Mills Mall was kind of across the street from where we lived at the time. And it was after one of the bowl games. They had like a bunch of clearance shirts or something. And so it was Penn State versus Florida. And I remember it was like $3 for the shirt. So I bought that bowl game shirt. And wore it like I went to one of the schools. But just kind of a cool T-shirt.
Right, that's awesome.
Actually, that same year I bought a Nebraska. No, it was the spring training before because Nebraska had been in the title game.
Dude.
And they were in Phoenix for the bowl game. So it was a number 15 Tommy Frazier, like red Nebraska shirt side.
Those teams, I mean, Nebraska was as relevant as any college football in the 90s.
It's amazing to think, like, well, I mentioned it to like younger people, and I was like, oh, Nebraska, like what the heck?
It's an afterthought, really. I think they had one good year, 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in that range.
Tom Osborne was there forever, and they had some really great teams. They were running the wishbone and some.
But it really, as far as true national championships, though, or competing for them, it's been since the 90s.
Oh gosh, they haven't done anything since then. But yeah, so any other fun tidbits about bowl games or bowl game history you want to share with us, Brian?
No, Paul, you need to watch All American.
Okay,
and then you need to watch We Are Marshall, 100%.
Okay, yeah, I'll get on that. So, well, thank you for listening to this dive into bowl games. We hope you've enjoyed this. We certainly enjoyed bringing it to you. Thank you all for listening to this podcast. We really enjoyed diving into bowl games, sharing some of the history about it, some of our personal anecdotes and stories. But thank you all for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this. We're on all the socials. Make sure you're getting those and checking us out. A lot of fun content out there. But thank you so much, and have a great sports day.
Out. Go Pack.